In addition, cooking oil will also be available at supermarket chains and the ministry's affiliated outlets at pre-crisis rates, Musalhi added. Speaking about the preparations underway to launch supermarket and Ahlan Ramadan exhibitions in Greater Cairo and other governorates, Musalhi said, this week we'll see the launch of Ahlan Ramadan exhibitions in various governorates with the participation of major supermarket chains, government companies, and outlets to offer basic food items at affordable prices. The Interior Minister.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're now delighted to be joined over the telephone by Dr. Tamer Rady, the head of the Economic Department, Faculty of Business, Ain Shams University. Dr. Tamer, a very good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon to you.
Thank you very much, Doctor, for joining us. Let me start by asking you, Doctor, we've seen the We Are All One initiative, which was launched, of course, with the arrival of the holy month of Ramadan. We've seen a bit of an increase in prices of commodities, but this initiative allows, the availability of such commodities at discounted prices compared to, other markets. How important do you see this initiative, especially with all the issues happening all around the world? I mean, food specifically, all over the world has increased in price with the wars in Ukraine and Russia, plus of course the pandemic beforehand. There was already a critical situation with a supply of food.
Well, there has been a critical situation, and it is expected to continue sometime in the near future.
Yes.
The good thing is Egypt had been very alert early on by increasing its strategic storage of commodities that are deemed as nationally important. And within the recent 4 years, Egypt has established new silos, about 50 of those, distributed over 17 governorates. Now, having a strategic reserve coupled with the inflation that's occurring now, which is totally imported, this is absolutely coming from abroad. The Egyptian government have interfered to make it very easy or to ease off some of the pressure on the lowest of those people that are in trouble approaching Ramadan.
Yes.
By distributing things at less expensive prices. But this is not all. When you look at how to combat inflation, the idea is much bigger. You are just reaching those that are somehow in the poverty line, under the poverty line, and easing their lives off. But on a macro level, you approach inflation through the monetary and fiscal policy tools, which the government has been doing over the last few weeks.
Indeed. You mentioned, of course, Dr. Tamer, the issue of inflation, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's also the issue of supply and demand. Is it true when, demand for a certain commodity decreases, this makes its price go down because there's oversupply of it?
Excuse me, can you repeat the question, please?
Yes, I'm asking you about the issue of supply and demand and how, this initiative launched by the government has taken away a bit of the demand of the more expensive commodities because there's now its supply at, lower prices for the citizens.
Oh, yes. The problem of supply and demand will always play the most important role. This is economics. It's all about supply and demand.
Yes.
When government interferes to control the market at tough times like this, this is much appreciated. But you cannot keep on controlling the markets forever.
Yes.
What happened on the other hand side is, you will have to admit that prices are going to increase, but the government have pushed around 200 billion Egyptian pounds in the form of a 13% increase in wages and pensions. This increase was planned for after 3 months from now, but what they did is they started it this month. So you're handing people money in their own hands, which is really good. At the same time, to ease off inflation, to ease that demand side following inflation. We have...
Dr. Tamer? Right, I'm afraid we've lost Dr. Tamer. A short break and hopefully we'll get him back on the line. Stay tuned. Right, Dr. Tamer, Rady, you're back on the line with us?
Yes.
Sorry, apologies for that.
Yeah.
Yes. So, doctor, you were saying, continue, sir. You were saying the issue of supply and demand is the base.
Yes. It's not just obtained by controlling the markets. It's much appreciated that the government is exercising some control. But what is even more important and more courageous from the government is that they went ahead and increased pensions and wages by about 13%. And that was supposed to take effect a few months from now. But in order to cope with the inflation rate, the government opted to apply this right away. And it started already. So that's like handing people money in their hands rather than controlling the market. But the control of the market in certain important strategic goods is highly appreciated as well.
Indeed.
On the other hand, yeah, sure.
Yes, carry on, doctor, sorry.
On the other hand, on the monetary side, floating the exchange rate, increasing the interest rate, those two together are the basic monetary policy tools that we use to combat inflation. And they are going to prove very important within the next few weeks.
Right, indeed. Right, doctor, you also mentioned a very important issue, which is that of silos and how, the government increased the number of silos which store wheat, which is a very important commodity for Egypt, as Egypt is the top importer of wheat, and mainly from Russia and Ukraine, which are currently having their own, war. So, how did this help alleviate the issue of the availability of wheat, which is a basic commodity in Egypt?
Well, there are a couple of remarkable things here. If you look about what's happened in the wheat market, Egypt imports almost 85% of its wheat from Russia and Ukraine.
Yes.
In addition, almost around 75-80% of its sunflower oil, much needed oil products, food oil products in here, is imported from Russia and Ukraine. And those two commodities in particular have witnessed almost a 50% increase in the worldwide price. It's massive increase. What happened is, when it came to the wheat, Egypt has restored, renovated, and established about 51 new silos within the last 4 years. Very large strategic silos distributed over a wide number of governorates, around 17 governorates, as I recall. And that was done almost a year ago. And as a result, the strategic storage of Egypt's important commodities has been increased by around 3 months. So when the inflation hits, you're already secured for several months as compared to last year. Now, the remarkable thing as well is if you look at the amount of shipments as reported by the trade statistics, shipments from Russia, from wheat, for this month, for example, is considerably higher than that of similar months last year. So far as we know it, those shipments have not been interrupted as much as people thought.
Indeed. And in addition to all of this, the president directed the government to offer farmers additional crop delivery incentives for each herdib of locally grown wheat, to also encourage them to supply as much as possible from their own harvest during the current wheat harvesting season.
Absolutely. You work on both demand and supply sides.
So further, of course, alleviating any problems with the supply of wheat.
True.
One final question, doctor. Of course, with the holy month of Ramadan is a month of charity and, of course, lots of familial gatherings, etc. So, of course, there is more demand for foodstuffs and commodities from the market. How do you see after the month is over and with the advent of Eid, etc.? Do you predict that prices could stabilize afterwards, or do you still see them as being a bit up and down?
You see, what happened outside, the inflation rate, the worldwide inflation rate has been induced through two channels. One is the cost push channel, in which suddenly all the prices of things like fuel and goods have increased due to supply problems and logistics. On the other hand side, you also had the demand. People are coming out after the corona crisis, eager to buy more. So the demand has been pushing it and the cost has been pushing it, both sides. what happened in here is your contracts for the shipments in Ramadan was already made almost 3-4 months ago, way before the crisis of Ukraine and Russia. Right. So the first tidal wave of inflation imported from the world has arrived slowly, but I am afraid that a little bit more would come next. Ramadan always traditionally had witnessed an increase in prices given high demand, but the imported inflation is expected to increase a little bit more before it starts to decrease. And I hope that would happen really fast with the war in Ukraine, between Russia and Ukraine coming up to some sort of a settlement or end. That would hasten, of course, stabilization of world prices and will form better expectations for the future.
Absolutely. I'd like to thank you very, very much. Dr. Tamer Rady, Head of the Economic Department, Faculty of Business, Ain Shams University. Thank you so much, Doctor, for your time and your insight. And that's all the time we have for today's episode of Cairo Local Time. We do hope you have enjoyed it. Join us again tomorrow just after 4 p.m. for a new edition with a different crew. Till then, my name is Angie Meher. Many thanks for watching.